So before I go to the topic itself, let me remind you that applied linguistics is as young as I am or as young as you people are. It is not very old. If you go to the history of applied linguistics, the first department of applied linguistics was opened at the Edinburgh University in 1956. It was, I think, 4 years after my birth. But its inception somewhere started along with the International Linguistic Association, which was formed in 1943 and produced its first volume of the journal in 1944, which is called WORD, Word. And it so happened that, there's always split, like in a political party, they have got split in academics and institution also. So in 1964, International Linguistic Association got splitted, and then we have a new young, say, association called International Association of Applied Linguistics, which was founded in 1964. And then after a few years, this split it again, and then American Association of Applied Linguistics was formed in 1977, 1 year later than TESOL, which was established in 1966, I think. So this is simply a small history of the birth of applied linguistics. And then this is the menu that I will be talking to today. One is the first, I will define what applied linguistics is. You all know it, and it was just a recapitulation of what you did in your master's or bachelor's degree. Then we'll talk about the problems that were raised by William Grave way back about a decade ago. And then we'll see how these problems being addressed by the researchers and how they are being, say, addressed by the researchers now. And then we'll compare them with the recent trends, recent problems that have arisen in this field. And then also talk about research emphasis that applied linguistics does have in a broad category, but we'll go to this minor category as well. So I'll give you one example from a professor from Iran who did a contrastive critical discourse analysis way back in 2017. And we'll talk about a little bit now language, applied linguistics has moved on to the workplace also, because people learn language, they have to be equipped with the skills that they need in their workplace. Whether the applied linguistics that has been studied so far, taught so far, been able to equip the people with the skills that they need, particularly in a workplace. And then we'll also talk about the strands, how they are expanded and then go to macro-sized through American Association of Applied Linguistics 2020 conference. Some of you have applied in this conference also, you know the strands that they have put in there. And we'll talk a little bit about post-humanism applied linguistics, which is now in discussion. And I will give you some reference, and you can watch some of the very dynamic personalities in this field. You can listen to their lectures, and we'll particularly refer to someone. And then we'll talk a little bit about research trends in ELT in Nepal, and then compare them with some global trends. I cannot do everything at in this short period of time, but I will give you small kind of comparison. So American Association of Applied Linguistics defines it as an interdisciplinary field which takes a broad range of language-related issues, doesn't say problems, but issues. And then it is a kind of amalgamation of theoretical, methodological, and educational and other approaches to various disciplines, ranging from humanities to social science, cognitive to medical, and natural sciences. And we'll see the problems that William Graves has raised coincide or go in consonance with with this definition or not. Then Grave, I mean, the same person whom I will refer at large, in 2010, say defined it as a real world problems. I don't know whether the categories of the problems that he envisioned address these real problems, world problems, but he talks about very obvious problems worldwide. Could be discrimination, language learning problems, attrition, and aging migrants also, the people who migrate from one place to another place, like our Bhutanese friends migrated to the United States, and they had a lot of difficulties because they were kept in different states. And then at one point of time, initially, I heard that there were 9 people who committed suicide every year. So because it was very difficult for them to settle down in a new land without a language of that country. And also assessment and instruction and the language content. These are what Grab says fundamental problems. So we will deal with these problems and we'll categorize them at the macro level later on. Then another definition which Debord gave in 2015 is applied linguistics focuses on real world problems that can be solved with a linguistic means. So language becomes a tool to solve the real world problems. Please read this book. This is free access. You can download it. It is the history history of applied linguistics from 1980 to present, published by Oxford University Press. Now, this is a research-based book, and then you will be surprised because Debord interviewed about 40 international, very dynamic, top kind of applied linguists, including Diane Larson Freemans and others. And then also he sent questionnaires to 68 similar kind of applied linguists all over, but he got only the response from 54 people after continuous, say, changing of the questionnaire that he dispatched to them. So the book really talks about different definitions of applied linguistics given by different scholars, how they perceive applied linguistics as such. And then also a leader. I mean, he claimed that there are world-class leaders in applied linguistics. And if you look at the book, there are some leaders which the names of the leaders are given there. And then also he talks about most important articles and books through the mouth of these world-class applied linguistic readers. When we talk about the most important articles, he surveyed, the articles that the people read, the frequency that they had, and the books that they read. Actually, in the light of that very survey, he gives a list of the, say, most important articles and books, and also talks about theories and methodology in applied linguistics, psycholinguistics, sociolinguistics, and educational aspects of language education, and also talks about the dynamic turns that came into the area of applied linguistics. And a citation problem, we all know it because some people use MLA, some people use Harvard, some people use Chicago, some people use American Anthropological Society, and some people use others. And then also, finally, he concludes the book with the impact of applied linguistics research in language teaching and learning. So I recommend that you people read this book. If you cannot download it, please let me know. I will send you the book. This is wonderful research. Now, the problems that Grave raised in applied linguistics are language learning. Basically, applied linguistics, when it was born, it started with, I will talk a little later, main concentration was on language learning, and which gave birth to second language acquisition and first language acquisition. Also, language teaching and part with language learning. And then you've got language contact, problems in language context, problems in language policy and planning, problems in language inequality, and problems in language pathology, literacy, language assessment. I will talk about problems that has been raised in language assessment also. I'll give you an example. And a language and technology that has emerged Bible, and this is what we've been using even in the lockdown days. Early this morning, I was listening to Professor Chomsky. He gave a 60-minute talk to the Brazilian say Association of Linguistics, and I will give you a small say synopsis of what his talk was all about. And then language and translation and the language use. These are the problems categorically William Grace gave, which language can handle. Now let's go one by one to these problems. Now, the question of language learning is there. I mean, William Graves thinks that there are problem of emergence of language skills, how people acquire language skills and how they emerge, what efforts they have to make, how they have to be aware of these language skills and the rules, rule-based language learnings are there, how they use these skills and the context in which the language learning takes place. And when we talk about contextualization, DNG knows because he has also done his research on instruction in different contexts. And then automaticity, this goes back to structural linguistics and then behaviorist psychology and the language attitude while learning. Some children do have favorable, positive attitudes to learn a language. Some people think that, oh, I don't want to learn this language. It's horrible. And maybe expertise, how expertise can be developed through language learning. Or in consonance with language learning, there is a problem of language teaching also because of the resources. I mean, we have to buy the commercially available resources also, or we have to produce our own resources. We need training to teacher training, overwhelming teacher training to equip our teachers to teach in different contexts, and then practice, how the practice is given, contextual or just drilling or interaction or understanding of the language, teaching, and then use, context, inequalities in terms of the teachers' qualifications, teachers' age, teachers' experiences, and teachers' motivation. Some people are motivated but demotivated also, and the outcomes of teaching, how it is judged. So these are the areas where William feels the problems lie. The other one associated with language learning and language teaching is this historic book, which revolutionized applied linguistics. I don't know how many of you have seen this book. Robert Lado. I got it from the English Language Institute at the University of Michigan way back in 1985. When I was doing my intern at English Language Institute, I found this book where Robert Lado was former director of the same institute, and he did his PhD in the same institute with Professor Charles Carpenter Fries. So, when you talk about this book, why it revolutionized, it is the first book perhaps so well read by the people in the area of applied language, applied linguistics for language teachers. It gave birth to practically gave birth to contrastive analysis. It gave birth to error analysis because there were the questions on contrastive analysis. It gave birth to language transfer. There were a lot of researches done in second language acquisition and initial stages in 1960s and the 70s. You could see a vehement research in language transfer. My own guru, Susan Gyas and the Professor Salinker, they did a lot of research on language transfer, and this gave birth to a kind of insight into to the material production, people gave a thought that we have to compare and contrast two languages in order to produce the second language materials, and also talked about learner feedback, in which area the learners need to get feedback, and also gave some insights into language teaching, because the preface was written by Charles Fries. And then he also shows the importance of comparison of two languages in order to produce the material. This is what you are well aware of, right, from your B.Ed course. It also talks about language and culture, because there's one unit on the comparison of culture, but Robert Lado himself confesses that he could not do justice to the comparison of culture, which was very difficult. And then his sole informant was his own mother, who was a monolingual Spanish speaker in the United States. So therefore, he wanted to dedicate his book to his mother, who was not English speaker at all in the United States. She was Spanish speaker. So this book is very historic, but gave birth to second language acquisition, gave birth to applied linguistics, geared up applied linguistics perhaps. So the soft copy of this book is not available. I've got the hard copy. If anybody wants to just, make a copy of for keepsake. I don't think that now you'll be doing any contrastive analysis, but you can make it for keepsake also. It can be made available. Now, the other problem is language and then technology problems. We are facing this problem, and I was talking to the NELTA, say, state 5 people yesterday about the use of technology in the Nepalese schools, Nepalese classroom. And then the problem is with the learning. The first one is with the learning of technology by the teachers themselves. And then, learning of technology, using technology by the students, and then taking technology for assessment, and also access. This is a vital thing, because we have got the problem of digital literacy and the problem of access. In our remote areas, are you people listening to me?
Yes, sir. Yes.
There are some microphones on, so therefore, I overhear the people
Yes,
talk.
sir. We are clearly hearing, sir.
Okay, thank you. So there's another problem of access, because I used to give example that there are developed countries where there is access to all these digital gadgets. For example, the Chinese high school students, 85% of them do have the smartphones, and then they love to have their homeworks through these cell phones, and they submit their homeworks through cell phones. Same in the case of Japan, where 81% of the high school students do have a smartphone to do academic work. And then how to use these academic gadgets. As you know, we are too old dog to chew and chew and digest the tough kind of meat, and technology has been a tough raw meat for us also, but the children can easily cope up with it. So these are the problems that applied linguistics helps to solve. Then comes language contact and problems. You have got social and cultural interaction, because we have got such a diverse society. Culturally, we are diverse. Socially, we are diverse, and we have got several social strata. We have got higher class people. Then we have got upper middle class, and then there is a man-made social hierarchy also. So is the case of cultural diversity. We have got rich cultural, say, diversity in the country. And then the problem is how the people from one society to another, from one culture to another, interact and within the norm set by those culture and then social culture and social strata. And the same is the case with the maintenance of language context. How can we say maintain our social and cultural interaction, and then how it spreads? Once we can solve the problem of social and cultural interaction, then we can spread it. And then the problem now is in terms of the language also, there is maintaining the language. We are losing the language. We have the problem of maintaining the language. There is language shift also. People shift from change one language for another. And then there's language assimilation also. For example, the dominant language normally, suppresses the minority languages. If you move from one place to another place, either you have to assimilate with the language or you have to shift. And then the language spread, how the language spreads and how it dies. And same in the case with the bilingualism. We have to, our society is multilingual, even in a small community also, bilingualism say exists, and there is always problem of. And then I'm very happy that you did have say sessions on language policy planning with big shots like Dr. Prem Fyagji, Dr. Lavadev Avastiji, and Syamji, I think, and so many people, I mean, who gave insights into how, say, multilingualism, bilingualism can be maintained, and then can be used, can be an asset in language education. Then the question of multilingualism comes, where you could have, and in Nepal, as we know, we have recorded 129 languages. This is the record of the Language Commission. And then the census 2011 shows 123. We used to plead on 126. Now, thanks God, the Language Commission recorded 129 languages spoken in this country. So in such a multilingual garden where we have got 129 beautiful flowers, now how to plan for them, that is very important, because we have got acquisition planning, which refers to the language planning at the national, state, and local level, how the nation, Lavadev Sir's commission plans the language, how the states, different states plan the languages that are spoken in their region, in their states, and how the local governments particularly maintain and plan the languages so that they get the status. They get the status that is distributed, and also literacy can be maintained in the local languages for educational purposes. And when you talk about status planning, once you say, I will go to corpus first. So once you say, plan the corpus of the language. For example, you have to create the standard language. In order to standardize language, you have to have its orthography, have its got its script, and then also got its own spelling and grammar system. And we create dictionaries, we create literature. And I give you one example. When you started Limbu mother tongue in Eastern Nepal, we had to borrow the books from Sikkim, because in Sikkim, Limbu language is spoken by majority of the people, and they had got the strict scripts and was taught at the college level as well. So therefore, once we have the all these corpus planned and then standardized, then we can give a status of local status, state level status, and national status of a particular language. Then comes the problem of ecology of the language. When we this word ecology of language was borrowed from Huygens, because Einar Huygens was a great scholar in the field of language planning. He produced a lot of books on language planning in early 70s, 71, 72. And then he defines it as a language that interacts with the environment. And then this is now, we call it ecology of the classroom. It has gone to the classroom also, ecology of the classroom language. And then also the political factor that play a role in language planning, because, if the politics is favorable, then the language can get status, and then multilingualism can be planned in a proper way, and all the languages get status, they get recognition, they get status, and the children get the education through their own language. Then comes language and translation. This is booming, say, applied linguistics genres. The problem now arise in access to translation. We may not have the access to the translated version of the books, and then how the translation is effective, whether it's literal translation, whether it's a sense translation, or whether the translation goes in the spirit of the original authors, and how technology can be like machine translation. All technologies can be used in the translation. For example, the UN, if you give a speech in English, it is automatically translated in other 5 languages. So technology is working so fast in applied linguistics. And then comes language inequality. This is serious in Nepal also, and in other parts of the world also, because we have got as many cultures, as many languages, that many ethnicity in this country. So therefore, once we do not give, say, status to the language of a particular ethnic group, that creates a problem. It's regional dialects, for example, regional language also. You have got some languages spoken in a particular region. So therefore, there's a problem of that also. And we are still unable to, say, finalize the state level languages also because of the diversity, because of the wide variety of ethnicity living in that particular area. Also class also. I mean, there's a problem of class. We have got social strata, higher, lower, upper, man-made strata or economic strata, economically created strata. And then there's another also, or the gender balance in language and age factor also, because while teachers go to the classroom, they have to go down to the earth, to the age level of the students, and speak the language that they speak. So these inequalities remain problems, and then language can solve these problems. This is what Grape says. And then another one is speech language pathology. And when we talk about language pathology, we have got aphasia, which is related to the brain, where we have got damage in the brain and the people cannot understand and produce the speech. This is because of the damage in the left hemisphere of the brain, which processes the language, and then which is called the language zone. So people will have the inability. So we do not have enough labs, pathology labs, where people can go and then develop their language. The other one is dyslexias, where because of the brain damage, there's a problem with language processing also, and then people have the difficulty in reading and identifying. That's there. And then also there are other physical disabilities in the people. These are also problems in applied linguistics. Then comes language use. This has been a little bit talked earlier also. We have got different dialects. And then, if you talk about the dialectical studies, this leads to the, say, creation of world Englishes, particularly if you talk about English dialects. Now, after 1985, Kachru is the other tongue, and then the three circle, say, Englishes. English distinctly now is no more dialects, but it is going to be Englishes. And then there's a hell lot of literature in world Englishes, journals, and then a lot of literature in world Englishes. And you had wonderful presentation from Tikasa, so I will not talk about that. No, I was traveling. This was an incident in 2000 when I was traveling the southern part of London, that was Plymouth, where our Lakshman sir did his master's in teacher training. So one gentleman, elderly gentleman with a hat, came and asked me, "Where are you from?" I said, "Well, I'm from Nepal." So what do you do there? I said, well, I teach English. Sometimes I teach American English and sometimes I teach British English. Oh, then he became furious. He said, "Oh, there is no American English. There's English only. That's English spoken by the English people. That's English only." So That is the dogma. That's the people are still, English people think that this is their property. But now, since Nepal also spends about 20% of its national budget in the teaching of English, so we have equal right to claim at least, 20%. English is ours also. And then you have seen, Risey wrote an article in English, and then there are articles in English on Yamuna and Bajra Kacharujis and others pleading of world Englishes. Similar is Alistair Pennycook. These people are championing the world Englishes. And then also register, that gave birth to ESP, English for Specific Purposes, where you've got medical English, you've got engineering English. One of my students is doing PhD in engineering English. So there are varieties of say Englishes, they are related to particular occupation and a profession also. And then there are discourse communities. You can have the communities having their own discourses, and that differs from one community to another community. And then comes the other aspect, which is literacy, because in order to standardize the language, in order to plan the language, the first thing is we have to design the new script, orthography, we have to develop in order to give literacy to the people in their own mother tongue. That is there. And there are similar issues, language issues that exist at the local level. And then not only that, we have to develop resources in order to give literacy to the people in their own mother tongue. So this is another problem. And then CDC once started translating books in different languages. I think they have translated about books in about 8 or 9 languages, but I don't know their application. So still the problem will arise, and then this is what the Language Commission has to see, how the new orthography can be developed, because we still take Devanagari, which is similar to Indian Hindi also. Now, research emphasis on broadly is seen on applied linguistics, on language teaching, language learning, and teacher education. If you look at teacher education, yesterday, I think Richard Smith shared one book, Collaborative Action Research, Teacher Research. If you have downloaded that book from his link, please do that. If you haven't downloaded, I can supply to you. I downloaded, I read it yesterday only. So it's a wonderful book on action research, exploratory action research, participatory research, practical research, and action research. It has got wonderful, say, examples, wonderful worksheets, so you can use them also. And then teacher education is booming. I will show you the emphasis on the researches across the border in teacher education, how important it has been recently. And then critical studies took a lead recently, because once we took everything for granted, whatever was given to us, but now we have the right, learners have the right to question, and then teachers have the right to question. Therefore, critical studies have overshadowed almost all the disciplines. Now you can see critical applied linguistics, you can see critical sociolinguistics, critical psycholinguistics. You can see this criticality overshadowing all the disciplines in anthropology, sociology, and in other parts also. And language used in various settings, we'll talk about, as I gave you instance of workplace English also. So, we have got different professional other settings as well, where English is used, or one language is used, or other language is used. And multilingualism and bilingualism, this is a core thing that has been in the prime, and then I have told you about it. And language testing and assessment. So these are the 5 broad categories in applied linguistics, but we'll see whether these all categories encompass the rest of the micro categories of applied linguistics or not. So look at one example from Donald Trump's language use in US presidential campaign in 2016. And this was the critical analysis of just one article. The speech that he gave on his primary success from his electoral campaign from the Republican Party in 2016 when he was nominated by a Republican Party to contest with Hillary Clinton. So this is the little bit of critical discourse analysis where he talked about Americanism, which is in that small space, he used that word 31 times. And immigration, he charged on immigration. And then that was the time when he proposed to have a wall, big wall across the border in southern part of the United States, which was repeated for 10 times. And terrorism 2 times, and what he means by terrorism, I will give example. And a rigged system, five say frequencies. Economy and trade, which because he's a businessman, therefore he put much more emphasis on economy and trade. This was the article, you can download it. It's a wonderful article, a critical discourse analysis of Donald Trump's language use in the US presidential campaign 2016. The article was published in the International Journal of Applied Linguistics and English Language, English Literature. It's volume 6 and 5. You can download it. Now, the examples that he gave is the speech lasted 75 minutes, and then he used 5,144 words, and then he used very short sentences. I mean, compared to other president in the history, about 200 years of American president history, he gave the short speech. And then ideology on the lexemes. He gave more emphasis on the words that he used, and both in the sentence level also. And it was very provocative language also, because it was election campaign, therefore provocative language comes there. Short sentences, but very emphatic. And rhetorically, he said, "We make America great again." And then he charged on Hillary Clinton, saying that the legacy of Hillary Clinton is death, destruction, terrorism, and weakness. Look at these words. I mean, I don't know. I mean, if you do such kind of critical discourse analysis of the political speeches of the Nepalese leaders, they will be rather horrible. I mean, if you ever try to do research on them. Then, now the applied linguistics is moving towards the language at work also. If you look at this book, the Handbook of Language in the Workplace, this is the Routledge Handbook. You can download it. So the key areas of the workplace that this book talks about, the articles and the researches done are on directives in workplace talk. If you look at the Western countries, people at the workplace do not talk much among themselves because they have to serve the people. So therefore, there's no talking compared to the Nepali workplace, where there is a lot of tea, newspaper reading, and then a lot of gossips, a lot of politics, a lot of other things. So, and the relation talk at work, I mean, what relation do you mean, the relational talk? What is the relationship between the hierarchy at the workplace? And humor in workplace, what kind of humor? Maybe with the client. Or workplace narratives, what kind of language is used in the workplace? And then miscommunication that takes place in workplace, because if you are not proficient in language, definitely there may be miscommunication. And then because of the language, conflict may arise, and then argumentation takes place. So these are some of the research work, some of the wonderful chapters that you can read. It's a wonderful book, wonderful handbook, though it's a bulky, maybe about 600-700 pages. But during the log time, you can read as many books as you want. And if you cannot download, just let me know. I will send you. Now look at the 5 categories of the applied linguistics that, sorry. Okay. Okay, 5 broad areas of applied linguistics that I just told you. And then look at these, strands, micro level topics that IALA, went a little bit further to this in 2011, but this is American Association of Applied Linguistics, which gave priority to these areas for the presentation. The first one is assessment. I don't know whether you can read assessment and evaluation. And then they have got, this is what they call ASE, bilingualism, immersion, heritage, and language minority education, language cognition and brain research, corpus linguistics, analysis of discourse and interaction, educational linguistics, language, culture, socialization and pragmatics, language and ideology, language maintenance and revitalization, language planning and policy, second language, second and foreign language pedagogy, phonology, phonetics and oral communication, research methodology, reading, writing, and literacy, second language acquisition and attrition, or sociolinguistics, language and technology, teacher education, beliefs, and identities, translation, interpretation, and language access, text analysis, that is written discourse, and a vocabulary and lexical studies. So these are the 21 strands against the International Association of Applied Linguistics 28, which it gave in 2010 for its international conference. So you can match them and then see where they fit in. Then a new development that came in post-humanist applied linguistics. So you can download this book also, Posthumanist Applied Linguistics by Alistair Pennycook. It came out in 2018, I think, and you can download it. If you cannot, please let me know. I can send you. Now, what is this post-human? What is human? What is post-human? Now, so far we know that language is human. And then we have always discarded the animal communication. We have, this morning I was listening to a speech called Rosie Bridotti. Please, she has got a lot of speeches in, she is a gender specialist. She's a professor in Australia. She was giving a powerful speech in Harvard University. So on post-humanism, post-humanist humanism. So please listen to her. She's such a powerful lady at the age of 67. She's as powerful as Noam Chomsky. As you know, Noam Chomsky is, how old is he? He is 92 years old. And he got married at the age of 86 with a lady who was 51. So anyway, so this, people talk about human. This is what Rosie said. Human is not male. Human is not female. What is human? Who is human? And when people talk about human, they always talk about male figure only. So there's always gender biasness when they talk about, say, gender biasness. So this morning when Chomsky was talking about his worries, I could see at the age of 92, he has got worries. One is COVID-19, and he bitterly criticized President Trump also on it. And the other thing is, since he was giving a speech to the Brazilian Linguistics Association, he showed the devastation in the Amazon region, which could bring ecological problem and environmental problem. So he's much more, related to ecological linguistics in that sense. So therefore, that was the worry that he began his speech with. So here, post-human condition introduces a qualitative shift in our thinking about what exactly is the basic of common reference for our species, our polity, and our relationship to other inhabitants of this planet. There may be inhabitants, but there may be non-human also. What about the plants? I was giving a speech in Alta conference last time, I was talking about eco-pedagogy. So what is the role of ecology in pedagogy? Why do we worship Tulsi? But that's a plant. And then why do we worship sun? Why do we worship moon? And why we worship stone? Say claiming that there's a God. So we have got we have got the feeling, we've got the thought, and when we worship stone also. Let me give an example. In a nearby village, my village, there's a stone called, if Deepak Misraj is there, he knows it very well. So a stone is called Bahurani and Jethazu. Bahurani and Jethazu sat on the same stone, and the stone gets split. And since that moment, Bahurani and Jethazu do not touch each other. This is the Western culture, far Western culture. I don't know about others. So since then, these two splitted stones, they exist there, and people say worship them. So what is it? It is linguistics. People have the feeling, people have the thought. So this is what we have to go beyond the humans and see. And once we go beyond the humans, then we can talk about the human rights. We can see the violation, we can stop the violence of the human rights also. So therefore, the notion of humans and non-humans is no longer required for research purposes. This is what the post-human people say. And then if you read Pennyworks, this book is wonderful. You can see the examples from religion, from space, from plants, from different areas, how they are treated, and then how the polity has to treat them. Fuller in 2011 says it's a re-evaluation of the role of objects. Different objects have different roles. As I said, a stone becomes Shivaji for us. So why do we worship that stone, assuming that it's a human, it's a Shivaji? If you close your eyes, you could look at the human there. And the space also, we keep a particular space for that in relation to human thinking and the capacity through various forms of human enhancement. Therefore, we go for post-human also. And look at the star. I mean, you look at the star and say, you think about the position of the star, and then you have the meaning out of it. And then, if you look at the moon, you have a meaning out of it. So therefore, this is what post-human applied linguistics is all about. Then it is about rethinking the relationship of to place, world around. It is about listening. If you close your eyes, you can listen to the stones. You can listen to the nature. You can feel the air and understand the world. Act is humility, showing respect to everything, because God has created human. God has created non-human as well. So therefore, you have got the kind of human rights and the rights of other species and even non-humans also. This is a part of, say, applied post-human applied linguistics. Having said it, let me go back to Gary Burkejian. In terms of English language teaching or TESOL, he proposed these areas that should be researched in ESOL research. This article came out in the TESOL Encyclopedia of English Language Teaching in 2018. So these are the broad criteria of language teaching research he proposes. I have adapted them because some of them were long, but I curtailed them with due respect to him. Language skills, methods, and materials. Once you say language skills, you don't have to say reading, writing, listening, all these and the materials related to it. You don't have to say about online and then print media. These are all, say, materials and resources. Grammar, vocabulary, and pragmatics. Language teacher education. Learner motivation. Language testing and assessment. Language and identity. Language and education policy and planning. TESOL standards and best practice initiatives. So this is what Gary proposes, the areas where we can start our research, we can do our research. Now this article is not a very big one. It is about 6 pages. I think if you want, I can send you. This is downloaded from the Tishola Encyclopedia of English Language Teaching. Now, compared to, say, Gary's categorization of the research areas, now let me take you to the studies in second language learning and teaching. This is the broad category of the broad category proposed by second language learning and teaching for its conference, whether they tie up or not, because these are basically macro-sized one. So let's compare them, and then hopefully they will match with his broad categories. The first one is politics and English language teaching, English medium of instruction. That's also part of politics. Then another one is English language teaching policy and practices, language ideology or ideology, whatever you say, language policies and practices, teaching English as a third language. This is a big issue in Nepal, because we think that, I mean, not only in Nepal, but in other parts of the world also, even in the United States or Britain also, English is the third language for many, say, a huge population. So this is a problem in Nepal also, though it's a foreign language, but it is the third language for Hiraji is there. Hiraji speaks Tamang language at home, and then goes to study Nepali second language, and English tends to become third language. So therefore, we have a vast majority of the population, more than 51% of the people have English as the third language in this country itself. So promoting intercultural competence in ELT, language and translanguaging in ELT, critical literacy, language curricula for young learners, English as an additional language, English for specific purposes, assessment and evaluation in ELT, fairness and ethics in English assessment. One of my students and then colleague submitted his PhD in language testing ethics at Tiruvani University. He is nearing completing it, his final viva also. So he shows the anomalies that is seen in the language testing ethics at Tiruvani University. Then a learner and learning environment, language learning strategies, imagining communities, perhaps identity and English language learning in a multilingual world, creating motivating classroom environment, creating a technology-rich English language learning environment, pronunciation in English as a lingua franca, current perspectives in vocabulary teaching and learning, pedagogic grammar in today's classroom, digital literacy for English language learners, English learners with disabilities, content and language integrated language teaching learning. So these are the macro areas proposed by studies in second language learning and teaching for 2020 conference. So you can match them with the broad categories that Gary has proposed. Then look at the research trends in ELE in Nepal. I reviewed 28 MPhil theses, and then see the trend of ELE in the Nepalese theses, because I could not do a big research. Look at the research topics: multilingualism 3, teacher education 6, learner autonomy 1, literacy 1, method of teaching 5, technology integrated language teaching 1, or technological embedding, or language and power 2, writing 1, learning strategies 3, medium of instruction 1, teaching strategies 1, language anxiety 1, and teaching materials 1. And the research methods applied is narrative inquiry, Gary would have been very happy to see that 9 people. And then autoethnography 2, interpretive paradigm, that is 16, which is the richest one, and then linguistic theory 1. So none of these research was quantitative. All of them were qualitative research. This is a a small sample, and then shows the research topic that we have researched at the micro level and the methodology that we have used. Now, keeping in view the same sense, Cairo University, Egypt, I say reviewed their one from the article that is published in 2018, ELT Research in Egypt, Trends and Challenges in Journal of Multilingual and Multicultural Development. It shows that teacher education contains the highest percentage of research, 21.67, reading 20 against ours, because we have left say content area in doing research, even at the master's level or at the MPhil or PhD level. But only 2 of my students are doing PhD in reading, so they are using content. But there is also methodology, not the development of reading or development of writing. Here you've got reading 20.27%, writing 98, speaking 769, listening 699, curriculum program evaluation 699, learning practices 629, vocabulary 659, language testing 489. So this is the trend that I got from University of Cairo, just to match it with our say emphasis in ELE research area. And then taking you to Gary's say New Zealand, here is one say research summary where the areas in research are. This is areas of research in New Zealand. This was the research that were reviewed from 2006 to 2010, and then published in Language Teaching Journal 46, Volume 2 in 2013. The teaching and learning of indigenous community languages gets a priority. Then literacy in and outside classroom, reading and writing, listening and speaking, pragmatics, assessment, vocabulary, grammar, technology, independent learning, course design, cognitive and affective factors in language learning, language teacher education, which gets the least priority there because most of the teachers are trained there. So now you can compare our small research, small, say sample 28, and then Cairo sample, and then the research that were carried out in New Zealand from 2006 to 2010 in terms of language teaching. These are the titles of the researchers. I have not written the names of the researcher for anomaly, and then I have not also told you the university where these were conducted. So this is the list. And then with these, the conclusion is, there has been a great deal of work in applied linguistics to handle the word problems with the language, because language creates problem. Once language is planned, there are less problems, and there's changing trends in applied linguistics, and posthumanism is coming. So it is it is in academia during this 1 decade period, and then there is a changing trend in ELTL. So people are inclined much more to methodology and an other aspect than core language skills. So this is what I reviewed and what I found. And then this is, I think I must conclude with my small presentation. Thank you very much indeed for listening to me. I appreciate for your patience at this hour. So if you've got any queries and questions, I'll be more than happy to address them, and we'll learn from them as well if you make the comments for future development of this presentation. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, DNG. Thank you, Scholars Association. Thank you, Mahendra Nagar. And thank you all the 87 listeners who are present here. Thank you very much.
Uh, Thank you, Professor Osti. In fact, 87 not here, nearly 20, 25 people are watching in YouTube as well. And
Oh,
here were 100 only, just they got less.
okay, thank you.
Anyway, thank you so much for such inspiring, sharing on the applied linguistic. As the people, all the participants were eagerly waiting for this session, and possibly they enjoyed it. And I'm getting the comments here as well. So,
Yeah.
participants, if you have any queries, please raise your hand and you can ask the questions. Yes, I think Ramji Timilsina is there. Ramji, yes, please you can unmute yourself and just ask your question.
If he unmutes, then I cannot hear him.
Okay, sir.
Okay,
Okay, unmute it.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
It's a wonderful presentation. I like the areas of extending areas of applied linguistics.
Oh, thank you very
I have
much.
one question, sir.
Sure.
We talk about post-humanist linguistics and applied linguistics.
Uh-huh.
We talk about many areas. Does the artificial intelligence, AI,
Yeah,
does it also come under post-humanism?
exactly. That's what I missed to tell you, because the technology embedded in language teaching, artificial intelligence, yeah, it is a part, and not only artificial intelligence, but other technological, say, learning and knowledge also come in it.
Thank you, sir. That's all
Sure.
from me.
So, other questions? Floor
Uh,
is open for you, please.
okay, DN sir, my name is Pratit Vaskata. Okay, I'm just listening all the presentations. I'm having some sorts of problems, sir, because there's one meeting ongoing in my college. That's a Swiss Hotel Association college, and they're just saying that, okay, how can you share all about the realizing personalized assessment through English language literature? And I feel it's some contradict over there, and it's a great time so that I can get some ideas from you.
You mean individualizing? What do you mean?
Realizing, yeah, they were saying about that realizing personalized assessment in
Mhm.
uh, English language and literature, not in the literature, in the part of only English language.
Yeah, Pratit, no, I mean, literature is there, no problem as such, because I'm a student of literature as well. So when you talk about it personalizing, now you've got the technology embedded where, you can assess the people personally, individually also.
Yes, sir.
So they can take their own space. I mean, this started with the call computer assisted language learning, where individual practiced individually and then also tested through technology. So if you use the technology, ask them to use the technology, they can do that.
Yeah, and then I just share all about those contents, and I talk to them. Is We are not good in programming, but there are something connections with digitalization and training in this pandemic situation, and they were quite confused about because they gave me one topic, and they were also confused, and I just want to add something because
Yeah,
it's okay.
yeah, Pratik, thank you very much. If you look at the British Council website, they have got several such tests which are given to the individual students.
Yeah, I got one content from the Cambridge University Press.
Uh-huh.
They share some assessment, and it was all about the digital content and sharing, and there were some problems. And I hope I will
You
can.
go to the British Council, website.
Sure, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Sure.
So, any other queries, please raise your hand and ask the question.
Since everybody got hungry now, so I've sent DNG. I've sent my email ID. If people cannot download the books that I mentioned, they can email me and I can send the books to them.
Okay, sir. Fine. So, I think there is no query to anyone. Please hope that later on you'll miss it, because sometimes we miss later.
No, it's okay because my email is there. They can contact me any moment. There's no problem.
All right. So, Pushpaji, anything to ask? Guna, sir? They are the regulars, sir. I cannot forget these people, Pratit and Puspaji, Gunaji. They have done the Herculean task joining us.
That's fine. And Puspaji is in touch with me and then the other people as well. So wonderful that you have collected the people from east to west, and that's wonderful. And then I felt so enthusiastic looking at their faces, so lively and then so eager, so enthusiastic. It's wonderful. And then, being the last speaker, it's an advantage also. Many people have covered, most important things of language planning, and others writing even. Did Professor Giri present yesterday?
I mean, he presented on third, fourth day.
Okay, that's wonderful. So thank you very much. If you don't have any question, we are still here, and you can contact me through email, and you can use any electronic media. Thank you, DNG and Scholars Association Mandanagar, for remembering this old fellow. And then I don't know whether my presentation was of any use. There was nothing new because it's old wine in a new bottle only. So that's what I have to say. Thank you very much for giving this forum to me.
Thank you so much, sir. On behalf of Scholars Association of Nepal, along with my side and all the participants, also would like to thank you. And as you, in spite of your busy schedule, also you manage the time for us, and possibly from the morning to have been evening, you have been working on this, and you provided us time, valuable time, I could say. And I feel now we are highly obliged to you.
Oh, it's my pleasure, DLG. If there are any valuable comments on my presentation, please pass them on to me so that I could at least get knowledge out of them as well. So thank you very much. Good evening. Good night.
Thank you, Dian sir. Thank you, Jai sir.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you. Bye-bye. Namaste.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir.
Namaste.
Bye-bye, sir. Thank you very much for the wonderful
Okay.
presentation.
Bye bye, sir. Thank
Yes,
you.
bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye
Namaste.
bye.
Namaste.
Namaste.
So friends, tomorrow we have last day. Tomorrow is the last day of this conference, and we have two sessions. One by Dr. Chintamani Gautam. He'll be sharing some ethical values as well to us, and another by again Lakshman sir. And today, we were unlucky that the network could not work. As a result, the Oza sir, Surendra Oza, could not share the ideas on his well-being topic. So possibly tomorrow we will have formally, end of this program, and we will request all to join us. Two sessions, and we'll end with the speech of Chair of Scholars Association Nepal tomorrow. Hope the way you have been with us time and again, tomorrow also you'll be with us, and we'll meet again tomorrow. Please join us. Thank you.
Dean sir. Dean sir.
Yes, sir.
How can you recognize the participant who is not in your list?
No, I have made a list of everyone, sir, here who is joining, who is leaving, everything. Yes, record is there. So regular participants will be given the certificates, undoubtedly.